Good day, viewers. Welcome back to the Preaching Humanist with David Oliverio. That is I. I'm going to continue on this message on suffering. According to the Bible, in episode 1, I went over that it is God's will, the Christian God's will, for true believers to suffer, according to his will, to teach you God's ways and to purify you. So don't think it's a strange thing when you go through suffering. I say we can minimize human suffering. We can do all we can because true morality is promoting the well-being of all and decreasing suffering. Now, in the book of Psalms, I like to go to the Bible because that's where, if you're a believer, you get your belief systems from, right? Psalm 119, look at this. The writer of this psalm in verse 67, before I was afflicted, in other words, before I suffered and had hardships, I went astray. Before I was suffering, before I was afflicted and had hard times, I went off the straight and narrow, is what this writer of this particular book says. But now I keep your word. You are good and you do good, O Lord. So this is the Christian message that you got to suffer to learn life's lessons. Verse 71, it is good for me that I was afflicted. The writer says, oh, it was a good thing that I went through suffering because it is God's will. We're going to talk about that today. We don't have to suffer to learn life's lessons. And he goes on to say, it's good for me that I was afflicted so that I may learn your statutes, learn the word of God. Now, I'm going to make a comment here. I personally, David Oliverio, even at my older age, in the past, present, and in the future, I don't learn life's lessons or produce moral, ethical character by suffering. Now, of course, it's going to happen. We all are going to suffer. Unfortunate occurrences will happen in our lives. Disease, sickness, catastrophes, and so forth. We can't stop that, but we can minimize these things. I learn by reading. I learn by studying human behavior. I learn by reading brain science, learning from other people who have experience in different areas. I have learned from my own personal experiences. There are other ways to learn life, to learn how to build moral and ethical behavior and how to be a good, productive citizen without suffering. But according to the Bible, you've got to suffer to learn these things. Now, here's a question I have, especially if you're a Christian. Would you as a parent want to teach your children good character, life's lessons, ethics, morals, by allowing your children to suffer and punishing them harshly? Do you really want to see your children in pain and suffering? Now, I'm going to take you right back to the Bible. I love this because I have tried and attempted to bring this to many believers before about biblical child rearing. According to the Bible, you must teach your children the right way, God's way, holy ways, good moral character by pain and suffering. Where do I get this idea? Oh, David, where do you get this idea? You're just making that stuff up. I said, no, I'm not. I'm reading your belief system right here. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 15. Listen to this. Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. I think we know that. Of course, children are foolish. They're going to do silly things. Why? Many reasons. Their brains are not totally developed till they're in their mid-20s. That happens. And they're children. They don't understand. They're growing. Now, according to the Bible, it tells you how to remove foolishness from a child. Here it is. The rod of discipline. In other words, take a stick. The rod of discipline will remove it. What is the it? Foolishness from a child. According to the Bible, you remove foolishness from a little boy or girl with the rod of instruction rather than moral philosophy, education, sitting down with the child and explaining to them what is right and wrong and so forth without pain and suffering. Not according to the Bible. Chapter 23, Proverbs, verse 13 and 14. Listen to this one. reading straight from the Bible. Do not hold back discipline from a child. All right? Although you strike him with a rod. I wish I had a rod here. Let's pretend this is a stick. It says here, although you strike that child, that little boy or girl with a rod, he's not going to die. Strike a child with a stick and beat him to teach that child, that little boy or girl, what is right and wrong, as long as you don't kill him. Wow. Bible truth. Verse 14, you will strike him with a rod. Do it. Strike him with a rod and rescue his soul from Sheol. Another word for Hades or hell. This is true biblical Christianity. Now, not long ago, I was at a client's home a couple years ago. Very strong Christians. They knew I was an atheist, but we didn't discuss it because they pay me money to do this. They're good people. I got to know their two little daughters. So I'm personally training the father and the mother in the living room with dumbbells and weights and so forth. The youngest daughter, 8 years old, was having a blast because I'm a silly old personal trainer. I like to make the kids laugh, engage them with their parents exercising. There's laughing at mommy and daddy as old people exercising. We have a good time. But the father said, it's time for you, the little girl, 8 years old, to go to bed. It's bedtime. She said, oh, Daddy, no, please let me stay with this silly old personal trainer. I had fun with her, making her laugh and so forth. He said, no, you must obey. It's time for bed. He grabbed her by the hand, began to drag her off to her little bedroom. It must have been 8 o'clock p.m., 7:30 or so. And she started crying and rebelling. This is what kids do. They do act foolish because they're children. This man, a strong Christian, dragged her, and on the way to her bedroom, he stopped in the kitchen, opened up a kitchen drawer, grabbed a big old rod of instruction, just like the Bible says, Proverbs 22 and Proverbs 23, biblical child rearing, suffering and pain. Grabbed the rod of instruction, grabbed the little girl and dragged her to her room. I was this close to losing it, but I refrained. I probably should have said something. He took the little girl in the back, slammed the door, and you can hear this innocent little 8-year-old girl, a man probably 3 to 4 times her size, begin to beat her with a stick. Only because she wanted to stay up a little longer to have some fun with her parents and the silly old personal trainer, making her and her sister and her parents laugh and having fun as humans together. Only because she disobeyed. Now, to me, this is not how you raise children. There are better ways of education than pain and suffering, but this is the biblical way. Let me tell you personal experience real quick. My daughter is turning 34 this year, 2018. I think it's 2018, yeah. And my son is turning 32. A long time ago when they were young, I was still a strong Christian and a young preacher. I didn't like to spank my children because I got the tar beat out of me from my alpha male Christian preacher father. Strict biblical rearing, right out of the Bible. And yeah, it leaves scars, and it does hurt. You don't have to learn through pain and suffering. So I remember my daughter acting out. She must have been maybe 10 years old. Never once did I touch my kids with a rod of instruction. But this one time with my daughter, I did feel guilty as a young preacher because I knew what Proverbs 22 and Proverbs 23 said. The rod of instruction, beat them with it. It ain't going to kill them. So I took my daughter aside, I lost my temper, and I saw the pain and fear in a little girl's eyes, looking at me and saying, no, Daddy, no, no. And it still haunts me to this day. I've asked my daughter many times to forgive me for that. And of course, she snickers and said, of course, Dad, I understand. I forgive you. But just to see an innocent child with fear and pain in their eyes of their father beating them with a stick, pain and suffering, the biblical way. Never touched her again with a spoon. I hugged her. I cried with her. I said, sweetie, I'm sorry. I'll never do this again. I never did. That was enough. My son, who's 32 this year, I lost it with him just 2 times ever. Did I ever touch him with the rod of instruction? Same thing. Seeing the pain and suffering in his eyes. I don't want people to suffer. I don't want them to be in pain. Neither do most of you. But according to God's way, it's His will that people suffer. This is how biblical Christianity is and how they teach, according to the Bible, to raise up children, godly children, with strict, painful discipline with a rod of instruction. I did the same thing to my son twice. I asked him to forgive me. I remember about 12 years ago when he was at Baylor University as a young, early 20-year-old guy, and I said, son, I still think about that time when I let my anger get the best of me and I hit you with a stick. And he said, oh, don't worry, Dad, I forgive you. And by the way, I have two very good children. They're in their 30s, productive citizens of society, moral and ethical people. And I didn't have to beat them with a stick. I just taught them love and respect, and they went to college and got a good education. One other thing, do we only want to minimize suffering for the human animal? Oh, no. We don't want any animal to suffer. Now, there is a YouTube video that I ran across a few months ago, and I wish I wouldn't have seen it because it still haunts me. Because I'm a softie, I'm a wuss. I don't like to see people nor other animal species suffer. Yes, this is true. I saw this. In Southeast Asia, I don't remember what country, but I've heard of them skinning domesticated canines, dogs, right, like our pets, for the fur to sell. I thought they put them asleep first and then skinned them, but they didn't. This video showed it must have been a collie, I don't remember the breed of dog, strung up by its rear feet, its rear legs, and yes, alive. A man took a knife and literally started skinning this dog alive. Now, just seeing the fear and the pain and suffering in this animal's eyes, looking up at this human being, almost as if, what are you doing? And it was in pain. I tell you, I get all watery-eyed. I'm a wuss. There's a homeless man. After my buddies and I, every Saturday morning, feed homeless people, and then we go out and do our atheist activism, as most of you know by now. And on my way home to South Austin, where Christine and I live, there's an overpass, and there's a colony of homeless people that live there as well. And the remaining bananas and oranges and bottled water and peanut butter crackers that I have, I stop off and drop it off to this colony of poor homeless people. And I don't like seeing them suffer. And when I go, there is a double amputee older man in a wheelchair who lives in a freaking box. What kind of country is this? Come on. I don't want to get off on that. And my question always is, where's God? If I had all the magical power of the world, I'd remove all this human suffering. So I'm doing my best, and others do little we can to at least show these people that we care and we're trying to help somehow. He's a double amputee. Now, when I give him food and other people, literally, I do have to walk off and kind of hide behind some structure. And I do break down sometimes in tears. I actually do. And I think many of you would if you saw how these people live. I don't want people to suffer. Neither do you. But according to this book, according to this belief system, if you're a true believer, you've got to suffer as Christ suffered. God's going to take you through the fire to test you, to make you a better person. You must beat your children with the rod of instruction, according to the Bible in Proverbs 22 and Proverbs 23. It's all in there. This is true biblical Christianity. I'm saying, oh no. You can let this go. Let's minimize suffering. And again, I close with my favorite quote. Morality, true morality, is diminishing, eradicating, removing suffering to our best ability we can, and advocating and promoting the well-being for all human animals and other species of animals. Let's progress and move on. So thanks so much for watching the Preaching Humanist, and have a wonderful day.